Prakash. Namaste,
Pranam,
Pawan.
Vinodji.
Namaste,
Pranam.
Pradam. Namaste, Srinivas. Stay back. Patrick. Today I want Patrick and Srini to come on stage and discuss. I want to know where is both of your, what you call, not meeting points or where you differ and what is the issue. Why don't you and Patrick and Srini come up?
Namaste, Binduji.
Namaste.
Yeah, sure.
Namaste, Jesse. Yes. Now both Srini and Patrick is there. Prakash, you can make the announcement, then we will do the...
Sure, Vinodji. Yes. Namaste, everyone. Welcome to Advaita Vedanta Satsang House. Being Sunday, it's an open discussion, and today we have an interesting beginning to that with Patrick and hammering out the differences, and Vinodji as the referee with a sense of humor. But as always, this Sunday room is for an open discussion on Advaita, but you can bring in other questions. And no questions are, left, without answers or interpretations. So please come up, and if you have any questions, please ask. And I've shared some links in the chat, which are the links for the YouTube channel, where you can access even the open discussions, but mainly the Bhagavad Gita sessions that are ongoing right now. And we will continue the Bhagavad Gita tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. IST. But today is open discussion, so we have an hour and a half with Bindoji, and today it is beginning on a very interesting note. Over to you, Bindoji.
Thank you, Prakash. Welcome to Srini and Patrick. I've been listening and hearing, that both of you have set ideas or, notions which you both feel that it is not the same. So I want to hear, since both of you are here in the state on the panel, to spell out what you feel is that, and then the other person feels if there is any difference. Let him spell it out. So starting with Srini, who came first, and Patrick will answer to Srini. And then let us proceed from there. Over to you, Srini.
Yeah, I think, generally how our conversation start is actually Patrick only has interesting questions for me, and I try to answer which develops into a conversation. So I think most of those things are around. See, one thing is will, right? I think one of the sessions we were talking about will, and I think I was asking the question on Saguna and Nirguna. And fundamentally, is it possible to answer in a very binary manner that if the Brahman, I don't know how to put that up, has a will or he doesn't have a will? So that is, I think, one of the points, and that gives. But one more thing is, we had deep conversations, and we were able to reconcile also. But anyway, we don't want to go there. We'll just start off with this, Bindoji. So the fundamental thing is, I seem to be saying that there is no will possible in Brahman, and Patrick, correct me if I'm wrong. Patrick seems to be saying there has to be a will and volition in Brahman. So I think it generally starts around those areas, basically.
What do you say, Patrick?
Yeah, I don't know that. Hari Om, by the way. Namaste.
Hari Om.
Thank you. Yeah, nice to be able to join you. Yes, Srini and I there's no fundamental disagreement. It's really more of a language and modeling, aspect of it. He has a much better understanding of, Sanskrit, and so it's more incorporated into his, vocabulary. And being an engineer, he's got a more technical mind. I'm, come from, as a yogi to this, so it's more experiential. But generally, I never hear Srini say something that I disagree with as an example, so that you understand that there is no fundamental disagreement. It's really the way that we're modeling and discussing it. But there's a formal aspect to the way that Srini approaches this that I differ from, and so for me, I can't. The concept that Ramakrishna and Vivekananda speak of the jnana is far closer to the way that I approach this. And everything that I know of Advaita strictly as that doctrine I've learned from you and my own inquiries. But my inquiry starts with me and my experiences, not from an academic perspective. And so that there's a couple of things that, we're discussing right now. There's this ongoing discussion of will and volition. And, when we hear Shankara make the statement, Jivo Brahmeva Napara, I'm tending to take, a lot of this literally. And if we make the assumption, the foundational assumption that there is no other reality than Brahman, I don't get into this whole idea that you guys do in terms of setting up proxies. So, this with Chittabhasa and Pratibimba, sorry for bringing these, maybe Srini, these are new kind of ideas that I'm bringing into our discussion, but the notion of reflected consciousness, it's very foreign. And so I like to tease Bindo and call him a dualist, because everyone considers him a radical and a hardline Advaitin, but I kind of see this, he's compromising in that sense, that when we set up all these other words and concepts, they really are proxies. So if we look at if we accept that Brahman is the sole reality, but then we get into this notion of mind, that Brahman is reflected in that mind, and the mind is really where the action at. Brahman is separate from that. He's just reflecting in that. I just instinctively reject that as dualistic. While I understand the foundational and the concept that there is a mechanic, so to speak, to it, and because we're, unfortunately having to put words, to this divinity, it's compromising. So I'm accepting of that. So it's more for fun that it's Vijnana. There's nothing other than Brahman. So you can't look at it in parts and try to understand it in parts. It's one thing. I mean, this is, the beautiful thing about it is that, once you understand and accept it and have had the realizations, you realize how radical it is. I mean, it turns everything upside down. But at the same time, I'm simply taking it one step further and seeing that there's no divisions, there's no reflection, there's only that. And so I look at all of it when we say we get back to Jivo Brahmeva Napara. I'm taking this literally. And so, that's kind of maybe some of the background. Srini's 12 hours ahead, so he's had more tea and more coffee, and his mind is more, there's a lot more clarity than I have. So, that maybe that's how I begin the discussion.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Srini. Both of you have set your, preambles. My purpose of both of you calling and to discuss these issues is mainly to remove and remove the what you call samshayas, or what you call the doubts or unclear methods of evaluating, and bring a clarity so that both of you become absolutely clear of the real truth which we are talking about. It is not that both of you do not know about it, but then the words, as Patrick said, or the way in which Srini put it, the chances for the mind to create a confusion. Actually speaking, it is the mind which has created the confusion, because of which we are not able to see ourselves as a Brahman or Atman. That mind is still playing within all of us. So to keep the mind under control and have a clarity within ourselves is the purpose in which I want you, both of you, to discuss about it. Now, having said that, I want Srini to explain to Patrick, from your point of view, how do you evaluate Jivo Brahmaiva Napara?
Yeah. So I think that is, so I definitely, I don't think I can directly agree with the way Patrick put it. Like there is no need of any intermediate states. For me, it's simple. It's, I know this, but this is the way I heard it from the Guru. So I prefer that kind of expression, that the Pratyagatma. So in this context, we have to take the Jivatma as to be the Pratyagatma, meaning it's a purified, it's a Atma without the other malinas, whatever the other malinas are there in the context. Once that Atma is purified, then the Jivatma is identical to the Paramatma. So it's not directly, without anything, just like that, the Jivatma is Paramatma is little difficult for me to swallow or something like that. So for me, it is a Shuddha. It is the Samskrita, or the one which is some treatment the Jivatma undergoes and then realizes that it is not different from Brahman. So that is my point, Bindaji. Thank you.
What do you say, Patrick?
Yeah, I mean, I understand, the concept of Pratyagatma, but it's only a placeholder. If we understand it as an object in consciousness, I'm comfortable with that. And I'm not suggesting that the object is equivalent to, Brahman. But there's not the model will always fall short. And so there has to be a realization that's associated with, prior to the model, and that the language arises out of that realization. And sometimes it will be perfect in the way of poetry, but the mental concepts are not gonna or be sufficient. I don't see the necessity, to set up, this concept, the concept of a proxy, that if we know that Brahman is the sole reality, what's the need for proxy? What's the need for that actor or the player or the reflection? If we're talking about, the Chitabhasa, why is there the need for the reflection? Just simply it's almost a way of negating Brahman in that sense. It's all Brahman. So there's no need for the layers. That's, is that sufficient in terms of you understanding it, Bindu?
No, I got it, but you didn't directly answer Srini's point. You are still referring to the Chidavasa proxy route rather than what Srini said about, the Jivatma, when it is considered as same as Brahman. He said that it has to undergo some sort of a thing, cleaning, to become Paramatma. But you have not addressed that issue.
Okay, so maybe I misheard what he's attempting to say. I'm simply saying that you can put up other words for it to try to create some comfort in the mind, but those words are only describing aspects of Brahman. While
What do you say,
Brahman has
Srini?
no parts, yeah.
What do you say, Srini?
Yeah. I think it is very essential to have an intermediary stage. Otherwise, the problem is it's our experience, right? Our experience is filled with multiplicity, experiences of sukha, dukkha, and all these things. So there has to be for a lack of better word, solution and some intermediate steps. And then, they might not be necessary for everybody, like we discussed, maybe already born enlightened people like Ramana Maharshi or something. But anyway, that is beside the point. But it is definitely necessary for intermediate steps, and only then it brings out the clear picture. And definitely the another problem is to create this concept like there is no difference between samsara and what we call as mukti. So if the samsara itself is mukti, because this is also a popular saying, right? I heard it multiple times that there is no difference between samsara and mukti. So I think that that is little bit it's difficult for me to understand. So that is the differentiator from. So it's like a journey from samsara to mukti. The normal jivatma, what we talk about, is the one who is having sukha dukkha experience and all. Whereas the cleanse, after all these cleansing activities of whatever Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, or whatever it is, the prakriya, then the pratyagatma, the atma will be cleansed, and that cleansed atma, the essence, is the one which is identical. So without any intermediary stage, I wouldn't say it is not possible, but it's I don't know what to say.
Let's try something. Let's try something experiential in the sense that when we talk about an object as vritti, or an idea as vritti, or a concept as vritti, can we trace the origin of vritti? Is that too difficult to do?
No.
Right. So let's try that. What is vritti? What is the origin of vritti? Does vritti originate with jiva? No. But yes, the real origin has to be Brahman. There's nothing other than Brahman in that sense. And so when this original kind of thread or discussion originated a few weeks ago when I simply made the statement, there's no saguna, there's only nirguna. The nirguna is a notion. It's a superimposition on nirguna. Nirguna is that placeholder as well. That's a notion as well. Mandukya speaks of Turiya, that there's waking and dream and sleep that arises, out of that, in that Turiya, but fundamentally there's only Turiya. Does this negate experience? And does it negate the world? No. We simply resort to awkward language by saying that, these states, the world of experience, the world itself, are arising in that Turiya, out of that Turiya. There's nothing other than that Turiya in that sense. And so that's the origin of vritti. And so it doesn't, that's where I don't think you can get, if Srini and you can get past that, what you'll do is you'll set up a proxy, and that proxy will be the mind and that jiva, and that's where it's reflected. That's when I speak of the pratibimba. It has to reflect somewhere, because for God's sakes, Brahman could never, be doing this itself. So, this is, maybe fun. Let's, if Brahman isn't the sole reality and there's all these proxies, this reflected consciousness, then what's the origin of vritti? It's just the jiva. it's insanity. The screen doesn't get lit up by itself. The screen itself is Brahman, all of it. It has to be seen, because it's known as one. So have fun on that.
What do you say, Srini?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good explanation, but I don't buy it. So I don't think vrittis are coming from Brahman. So that fundamental, I can't believe that the fundamental proposition that the vrittis are originating from Brahman. So that is where I stop already. Now there is other questions like how we are having this experience, or how this, that, if you say I can't, probably, but the positive claim that vrittis are coming out of Brahman is something which I can't buy into. I think that's where, probably.
What is the reason? Why can't you buy?
Because that, I don't know, we can go technically, or also at the high level of it, it is just like saying samsara is mukti, and mukti is, it's basically removing the differentiation between samsara and liberation. It is completely, I don't know, for me it takes the whole thing, makes the whole thing flat. I don't think there is any point or something like that. Yeah.
No, you have said that vritti you can't accept it, but you should give a reason for it.
Because of the nature of Brahman, right? It is all the Shruti Pramana, Adrishyam, Avyavahar, it is undivisible, Achyuta. The nature of Brahman is, it's impossible for it to create any, at least the way I heard the descriptions of Brahman, it is not possible. Basically, there should be some other place, right? Now one might also say that Vritti and Brahman are the same. So in the technical terms, I understand it as Brahman is Sajatiya, Vijatiya, Swagata, Beda, Rahita. So no matter however we try to explain it, there is no other space in the world or anywhere where Brahman is not there for a vritti to exist. So it's just not possible for anything like a vritti or something that is coming out of
you're indirectly saying there is Brahman and there is something else because of which the vritti and other things are felt.
I'm not of course we have a Vyavaharika experience, that is not denied, but I'm not claiming any entity that is apart from Brahman which is generating this experience. So there is this experience, and then there is the Brahman, which is
That means
so
you have got two. The Brahman and the other thing, which is creating the
yeah.
vrittis.
On the face of it, yeah, it definitely seems like there are two. Yeah.
That is why you are saying there is Brahman, Nirguna Brahman and Saguna Brahman.
Yes, exactly. Because there is no vritti that can come out of Brahman or something like that. Yeah.
So that is what that is why you are also saying that the jiva has to go through a cleansing, and after the cleansing, the jiva becomes Brahman.
Correct. Yeah.
That's what your stand is?
Yes.
Okay, let us see how does Patrick look at it.
Yeah, I don't see how the vritti can be apart. That's, to start with. I don't think that there's some separatedness in that vritti, and so that's why I use the word proxy in the sense I'm assuming you guys understand what I'm saying, that the proxy is the jiva, or the reflected, that mind. So we've got layers. There's Brahman, and then there's that mind and consciousness, and Brahman reflects in that consciousness. So first of all, you're going to have to explain how that happens. And so,
yes.
And number two is, like, now explain what the vritti is. If that's apart from Brahman, what's the origin of that? And so there's too much apparatus, and it's a model, which is fine, and the model is designed to cultivate an understanding, which is I'm fine with. They're all words,
but Patrick, you are not saying one thing. You are bringing Brahman as the only one, that's only one which is existing. But at the same time, you are talking about the reflection, and then things like that, a proxy, a vritti, in which the proxy is the reason why the vritti is experienced and everything. So at the same time, you are contradicting the Brahmans is the whole thing.
No. Sorry. No, what I'm saying is that you're doing that as a dualistic Advaitam. This is what you do, is you set up these proxies.
I didn't say that. It is your words which I am talking.
Yeah, but you've discussed and taught Chittavasa, have you not?
The thing is that I have spoken about Chittavasa. I spoke about Pratibimba. Okay. All those things are being spoken. But on what is the relevance that with the Brahman is the sole reality? That also I have spoken.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that there's a conflict there in terms of the approach, that it becomes dualistic when you start putting these layers in, and what I refer to as proxies. So let's just get back to the question of vritti as an example. How can adding layers into the vritti? Where did the vritti come from? Can you answer that? Or can Srini answer that?
Srini?
Yeah, I can't answer that, but I can definitely see that our experience is there and there is Brahman. So, how vritti is there is, there are, of course, there are Upanishad Vakyas and the Gaudapada Karika of Spanda and all. But, it is at what level of explanation, I'm not really sure. In my view, those are secondary explanations. Primarily, there is no Spanda or anything in Brahman. Yeah.
So, do you both mind if I bring in Vinod into picture?
Yes, sure, Indraji. No problem.
For what purpose?
No, on the vritti aspect, whether he can give a third direction.
You guys go ahead. I'll enjoy listening, and I'll just step down if you don't mind. No.
It's okay. Then you'll be there, because we have not come to a conclusion before we, bring in Vinod. So unless you have to go for some
No.
purpose.
If confusion is the objective, then this is the right route.
No. Confusion is not the objective. Okay. Then what you are telling, Patrick, is that the terms used by Pratibimba or Chidabhasa, did at any point of time did I specify that they are different from Brahman?
No, but you're going to have to bridge the gap of
Yeah, I'll bridge the gap.
Okay.
But if there is a gap idea in your mind, I will bridge it. But did I indicate at any point of time? If it is there, then it's my mistake that I have not clarified it. That Chidabhasa or Pratibimba is different from Brahman. Did I confuse you like that?
The confusion, if you don't hold that, then the confusion was Patrick's for sure.
Okay. The very word which Mandukya says is that there is a nature in the awareness to be aware of. Are you both agreeing with that?
Yes.
Yes, Bindaji.
Okay. Now, when it is becoming to be aware of, like we knowing ourselves, is what when Brahman is projecting it as itself as Chidabhasa or Pratibimba, it is not becoming separate. It is just like the same air can reflect to appear like water, what we call it as mirage. The air has not become two air. It is the one air only. That air, one side it shows as water, other side it shows as air. But the air has not undergone any change. It remains as air only. Same way, when Brahman is now becoming a activity like or a apparent activity like knowing, it has to project itself as the known and the knower. That is where the Chidabhasa aspect is discussed about it. Chidabhasa means it is a reflection of the Chit itself. It's seeing itself. Now, the Pratibimba, which see itself in it, in the awareness, is the mirroring of itself, knowing oneself. Now, what happens is that in that knowing of oneself, if an adhyasa takes place, that the body, mind, intellect, etc., which are also of the nature of Brahman only, but with name and form. In that name and form, we forget the aspect of the awareness or the consciousness and imagine it to be independent of Satchitananda or the existence, consciousness, awareness aspect of it as an object, which is the vritti which Patrick was talking about. That what happens, the vritti is nothing other than when we do not include the chit aspect and we consider it as a object with name and form, then the content of the object is name and form becomes a vritti. And vritti for what? For whom? Or for which? Where is the vritti depending upon? There is a dependency for the vritti in the consciousness to be known as an object. That is the vritti of an object. The object doesn't have a vritti, but the vritti is the aspect with which the separation of the awareness puts something outside the awareness. In the sense that in the reflection, when you see yourself or when you are seeing yourself, you are now assuming that you are a limited individual which is trapped in this body, mind, intellect complex. And then that trapped feeling is with which the jiva is now thinking that it is not Brahman. Therefore, what Srini says is the cleansing is required is not for the awareness of it. It is for the adhyasa aspect of it, or the superimposition of that limitation which we brought in upon ourselves, which now needs to be eliminated. That is the cleansing what Srini is talking about. Are you both in line with my thoughts, or if you have any objection, you have to take it now before I go.
I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah, I also agree, Binduji.
Okay. So if this is agreed upon, the jiva is not separate from Brahman. That is why we say jivo brahmaiva natara. That is, jivan is not different from them. The individual is not different from Brahman. The individuality is not due to the body, mind, intellect. The individuality is due to the limitation brought up in ourselves, in our capacity to be the pure awareness as a limited awareness. That limitation which we have brought in ourselves is the reason why we all feel that we are independent, limited individuals. Any questions or any doubts?
Well, it's really, no, it's no doubt, no. And the only comment is this, that adhyasa is really where the misunderstanding is taking place. Is that it's a mental model. It's only a mental model. It's words attributed to an action, an idea, or whatever it is, but it's simply superimposed on that. So there's nothing other than that turiya. They're all just placeholders, like a popcorn, and to try to find your way back, in the trail that you've created. They're all just little placeholders.
It's all in Brahman. It's all right. Brahman only, in Brahman.
That's why I say when we refer to, turiya as the sole reality, the vritti arises in that and out of that. It's just a word that's there, but there's nothing other than Brahman. There's nothing other than turiya. So and please, don't, when I say thing, there's nothing other, I'm not objectifying it in that. Well, I am objectifying it. I'm not turning it into an object. It's only the use of language. So, but right. Anyway, okay, so we're on the same page.
Now, do you agree that you calling me a dualist is also a language only?
Until we're on the same page, we'll continue to call you a dualist for fun. But yeah.
Okay.
I'll call you the dualist, but
a dualist.
Yeah, but let's get back to the concept of vritti. How can this vritti not be Brahman? How can this vritti be apart from Brahman?
Vritti is part of Brahman, or vritti is Brahman itself?
So first of all, let's get back. Let's just for conversational purposes, do you accept when we have to use language to discuss this? Do you conversational purposes, do you accept that Brahman has aspects?
No.
Okay,
Brahman has no aspects.
Okay. So Brahman doesn't have aspects, but what I'm saying is that in order to talk about Brahman has aspects. I'm not saying that Brahman has aspects. I'm saying that for conversational purposes, Brahman has aspects. And you're
No, I
saying no
cannot
still?
accept that.
Okay.
I cannot accept it.
Explain why, please.
Because there is Brahman and Brahman alone. Brahman, if it has got aspects, then it will have to go through modifications. If aspects are accepted, then modification will have to happen. That is not possible.
So I'm not talking that I accept that Vivartavada. I'm not suggesting Parinamavada. I'm not suggesting that Brahman undergoes any changes or modifications. I'm just saying that in order to talk about Brahman, Brahman has to be spoken of in terms of aspects.
Brahman cannot be spoken of aspects as if you are referring to Brahman.
Then this is why you're.
When you
this
are
is why
talking,
I'll
when
say
you are
you're a
talking,
dualist.
no,
then.
listen. No, listen to me. To take a person out of his multiplicity or a duality state to the truth, which is Brahman alone, there the conversation will bring in aspects to such an extent that the aspects itself is non-existent. Thereby, the aspect also is thrown away in the last minute to make it as that Brahman alone is the reality. It is just like in a mathematical equation where you introduce an x and then x becomes 0. The equation is now the problem is solved. That is the way in which aspects are taught to the person who cannot understand the Nirguna Atma or Brahman.
So what I'm hearing you say then is that there is Brahman, but when we speak of Brahman, we're no longer speaking of Brahman. That's essentially what you're saying, because we have to put, if you put a speech associated with it or attempt to objectify it, you're no longer speaking of Brahman. Is that generally
Yes.
what I'm... Okay, so I mean
That's right.
That's fine. That's a simple concept, and I accept that and understand it. But then when we speak about Brahman, we're not speaking about Brahman. Is really the dilemma you create.
Mm.
And for me, I won't accept it because there's nothing other than Brahman.
Then
And
we are
so
not talking.
Well, then the Shabd, there's no talking, but let's just, Shabd is not Brahman.
No, it's not
creates
Brahman.
these dilemmas. It creates these dilemmas that, become...
There is no dilemma,
ineffective.
Ritik.
Okay.
There is no dilemma. Dilemma is when you do not talk about Brahman in the transaction. Because in Brahman, there is no transaction. In transaction, you have to use terminologies, vocabulary, concepts, and all those things to prove that all these concepts do not exist in Brahman. And that is the time when you have to go to a state where the Amani Bhava of Mandukya is indicating towards it. That is the time when all the Chidabhasa, Pratibimba, concepts, Jiva, Brahma, all those things will be set aside. And Tushnim Babuva means you will become a Mauni. Muni Bhavati. You will become silent in that absorption, in that full awareness, where you cannot use any word, which the Bhattaittiriya says, Yado vacho nivartante aprapya manasasaha. The words and the mind, you need to transcend them to be in that pure Brahman. But when you are not in that state, that is the time we have the concepts.
Speaking of the subject, do you recognize?
No.
I don't know why it's necessary. That's the point. When you look at the mirror,
It is not necessary. It's necessary for those who do not see Brahman as what it is to be seen. To know the reality, you need to be in reality. Why? In transaction where there is an apparent reality or dependent reality, you need concepts.
This is another area. It's a rabbit hole, but I don't want to go. I don't want to take us down there. But I disagree in that sense that I don't think there's a transactional reality. This is where when you're setting up these ideas of saguna, I dismiss that. I don't believe that. I don't, and I know it's not. They're concepts that you're creating in another placeholder.
No, that is if you are
there's only Brahman.
Yeah, that is when you think that there is a saguna separate from nirguna Brahman.
Okay, well let's do this. Let's go back to vritti, because I think that's an important concept in terms of the discussion. So talk about vritti, and then try to make the case that it's not either Brahman's nature, that vritti is not Brahman's nature, or that that the vritti doesn't arise.
Vritti, I told you, when the chit, the pure consciousness, has an aspect of consciousness or awareness. In that awareness, when it is becoming self-aware, and in the self-awareness, it projects the otherness, then it becomes the vritti. Actually, it is seeing itself, like a narcissist seeing its own reflection in a mirror or water. It is not two, they are not different, but knowing itself. But at the same time, when due to non-apprehension of it being itself, the otherness becomes a reality. That is what is called the vritti.
Do you, in terms of the language, do you, when it comes to vritti, will you accept that there's a cause of vritti?
There is no cause for vritti. Cause for vritti is non-apprehension. Non-apprehension cannot be a cause. It is a non-existent cause. Non-apprehension of, while knowing yourself, if you do not apprehend that you are knowing yourself, then the otherness is projected. Agreed?
So then what is it that, then define vritti one more time?
That is what I said. When knowing yourself, you do not know it is yourself, then the otherness is projected, and that is called otherness becomes a vritti. The knowing of the otherness becomes a vritti. When I am knowing the world, when I am knowing Patrick, when I know Srini, when I do not know that I am knowing myself as Patrick, as Srini, or as the dog, or the tree, or the moon, sun, moon, etc., then I am projecting Patrick as separate, Srini separate, the dog, the moon, the sun, etc., all separate.
I don't know why that is exactly seen as separate. I don't know why you're doing that. Like why?
That is exactly. This is exactly what Krishna says in the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Vidya vinaya sambanne brahmane gevihastini shuni jaipa shupake pandita samadarshina. That in a Brahman, in a cow, in an elephant, in a dog, or a dog eater, the one who has realized sees no difference in the reality of these names and forms. The names and forms are there, but they see a underlying reality of common to all of them. That is why Samadarshina means they see the sameness in all of them. That is what is to be understood.
Srini, anything else?
No, Patrick. I'm good. I think beautiful explanation. Thank you very much, Binduji.
Yeah, it's nice. Thanks for doing this, Binduji. It's fun.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Srini,
If Vinod, I'm sorry.
for enlightening
Yeah, you want to bring up
discussions.
Yeah, nice. It was wonderful. We'll just keep chewing on this.
Yep. Yes, Vinod. Now let me hear about you. What your stand on that?
Binduji, I think all the problems arise only because the discussions, the concepts are held in the mind. When the concepts are held in the mind that everything is Brahman, when the concept is held in the mind that everything is Brahman, that causes all these kind of problems. Or Brahman is like Nirguna and all that, right? Because the moment one holds that as a concept in the mind becomes very strong and holds that concept forever and will oppose any other concept which comes. Because it has to retain that main concept, because it has to spend so much of time and energy to create that particular, to hold on to that particular concept. So what I see is essentially just the change of thoughts in the mind in all these discussions when they happen. The so-called realization seems to be totally different than any of this. So if you can throw a light on what realization really is, compared to just holding the thoughts in the mind, that will probably help everybody.
That is, very clear, Vinod. The thoughts are in the mind, as you said, but in the thoughts, there is something called awareness. The thoughts has got two aspects of it. One is the awareness aspect, and then other is the content of the awareness. And that together will become the thought. So the concept which you say, Brahman, Saguna, Nirguna, it's all concept when it becomes, you already have a pure awareness in which the concept of Nirguna, Saguna, etc., all the names and forms, all have got as a content is in there available. That content, when you take it out, and if you are able to have the awareness, then you will realize that there is no difference between the Saguna and Nirguna as the one awareness, which is now appearing as Saguna and Nirguna as the concepts in the mind. This is exactly what the fifth chapter Gita says now. That verse is also indicating toward that. This is exactly what Nehana Nasti Kinjana in the Upanishad also saying. There is nothing other than that. Or in the Kena Upanishad mantra, Pratibodha Viditam Matam, Amritat Vindate. In every experience, the content of the experience is supported in pure awareness. If the pure awareness is not there, no content can exist. But that pure awareness is not divisible, separated out from the content, because the content needs the pure awareness to its own existence. Just like we all need space for things to exist in this. That existence in the space is which makes the things things. Otherwise, the space is not there, there is no things at all.
So then we have some multiple options actually. Because there are many people who believe that awareness actually is just part of the mind. It is not Brahman. Okay.
That is not awareness. That is not pure awareness which I am talking about.
Yeah. No. There are many who believe that any aspect of awareness is actually part of the mind. So therefore, it is not reflective of Brahman.
It
Mind
is
is
there.
different, of course.
It is there in the mind also, because the mind is existing because of that.
So one basic question that arises right now, if one can recognize the existence of awareness and also recognize its own, the nature of the awareness as like basically being, exactly how the Brahman is being described.
No,
then I
it
think
is
it
very,
is like,
it is very simple, Vinod. Look at this way. Every experience or every awareness which you talk about from the mind level is depending upon names and contents, which become the thoughts. But there is a mind which is available without name and content of it, but as awareness. That is what is the mantra also saying, Eto vacho nivartante aprapya manasasa. Because mind becomes mind to us now is because it has content in the name and form pattern. Without name, no words, no sound at all, shabda. Can you think about mind or a thought?
Yeah, but my interest is not going into the process of the mind, but more into the awareness aspect.
Yeah, that is why.
Fundamentally, the question is that
you can go to the awareness if you remove the words. If you remove the words.
Yeah, the actual self-recognition, awareness has to self-recognize itself. There's nothing like mind recognizing awareness.
Yes, you're right.
So awareness can self-recognize your novels actually.
It is there.
Now my interpretation, my interpretation is that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'll just complete it. My interpretation is that because it is happening, it seems to happen from the mind that that self-recognition of awareness as awareness, it seems to happen from the mind. So most of the people don't take it seriously, first and foremost. And they may kind of trivialize it. And they don't even give any importance to the awareness actually. That's what I have found. They give much more importance to holding an idea about Brahman and knowing about Brahman through all these things and all, Brahmanas and other things. They give much more importance to that than a very simple recognition of awareness as the, you don't have to conclude it is Brahman, because that again is a mind only. But self-recognition, in fact, recognizing that actually only awareness can recognize itself is probably more important. And then staying there, basically.
Right. You're right.
But in other Clubhouse rooms, we have too much of unnecessary discussions only on this particular point. I'm quite fed up with all that, but for me it is very, very simple in my opinion. A lot of discussions can only happen because of the nature of the mind. And, if the mind can just keep quiet without even doing any discussion, and that itself is the purest state of the mind. And, that awareness will shine by itself. There's nothing to be done after that. That is my kind of response.
What do you say, Karin?
I really think these discussions are important because the only thing what is available to us is that reflected awareness right now. Everything what appears in that reflected awareness is what we are as a person, as Vinodji, as Karen, as Bindoji. We are the actors in the movie. So from that perspective, once you know the truth that you are not the actor, then the whole movie will be dismantled and you'll realize. But till that point, you still keep talking, you still keep interacting. So I totally disagree with you there. And holding on, because if you are able to look at the others as self, then you're much more open to see different perspectives from that same self in that same awareness, reflected awareness. So just be open to it. Don't hold on to your own perspective only. See other perspectives.
So do you agree that going to many rooms and arguing out will solve the problem?
No. Yes and no. I really think because, of course, there's an entertainment value to different rooms. Absolutely. no doubt about that. But as long as you're aware of it, and a lot of people are still actually very seriously going deep into trying to understand a certain perspective. So from that point, it is a good thing. It depends on the intention with how you are there. You can use a room for practice. You can use a room to observe yourself, observe your personality, how you are. You can use it for karma yoga. There are many reasons you're able to go into a room. So I'm coming from that perspective.
Okay.
But is that okay?
As long as you don't you lose your mooring.
No,
You should
but
be you should be
you make
established in
yourself
what you
stronger,
know.
right? Yes, but what you know, and that is the beauty of it, because you make it stronger. Through adversity, you can become stronger in knowing what you know.
Yes.
Because, and as long as you keep in the back of your mind that everything is part of that self, but the adversity can make the true conviction of who you are very strong. And that is the beauty of it too. But I have a question on that. The reflected self, that is the true ego then.
Yes, that is the one which becomes the ego. It is
Yeah,
not
but
the
I
ego.
mean
The
all of
ego is
Maya.
the
All of
ego is
Maya.
listen. The ego
Yeah.
is not separate from the awareness.
No. Yeah, agreed.
Yep. But the ego, when it feels that I am now limited to this individuality, then it becomes separated out from the awareness to become a limited individual, and then we call it as an ego. Not the individuality became an ego then it is like my body, my related to my body, my things, my wish, my desire, everything becomes mine like that.
Yes. Then you are identified with the actor in the movie.
Right.
Yes, that is understood. But I went one step higher, because if Maya is the reflection, the appearance in the reflected awareness, then Maya is the ego. All of Maya. Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Maya is because ego feels it, and then it creates the Maya.
Exactly. Okay, thank you.
Bindu,
Binduji, please clarify. There is nothing like reflected awareness. Awareness cannot be reflected or anything. What is happening is that, when the ego, awareness.
Let me stop you there. When we use reflected awareness, it is not reflecting on something else. The awareness knowing itself. In that, when it considers itself as separate from the knower, the self-awareness now splits up into two. Then it becomes a reflected awareness.
No, but why not call it as awareness which has mixed with the wrong knowledge, which holds wrong knowledge as a right knowledge?
That's it. That is why you call it this way or that way. Both, it is indicated, location is the same. Wrong knowledge, the non-apprehension of one's own knowingness of himself as now being projected as otherness, then it becomes the reflected knowing. But when you know yourself.
Yeah, why these ideas come is because many people hold awareness more like a light. And light is only shining. It's not going to participate in anything. It's only shining. And when it then shines on an individual, so-called body mind, then it becomes reflected light.
That there is a
Right?
difference
That's what
between
many people hold. Yeah.
there is a difference between that is simile. Light as a what you call self-luminous object doesn't need any other object to make it self-luminous. That is its nature, what we call it as swabhava. But how does that light know it has self-luminosity? Only when it is reflected on something else. That is not required. But what happens is that the self-luminosity is the self-awareness. In that self-awareness, as you rightly said, if there is a wrong knowledge or what you call the ignorance aspect of it, which we call it as non-apprehension of self-awareness, becomes the otherness. Then it is called the reflected awareness.
Yeah, I think the phenomena is far more important than whatever name we give to that.
Bindu, the
But
concept
actually,
of,
I think, sorry.
oh my God.
Yeah, Patrick is saying something. We know. Yes, Patrick?
Bindu, fundamentally, what I find is that people love individuality. And so one idea about individuality is that, it is like normally we associate with body or mind because it's a body or mind that makes individual an individual. But there are many who hold individuality as being independent of body, mind, knowledge, or whatever it is. And that independent individuality is a piece of awareness or something like, it is jiva. Jiva is like, that concept that people create because of that. Which has independent existence. It is of the nature of the self, but it is having individuality. Okay. And the reason it seems to me why they hold that concept is because the everyday reality is so very diverse and we all see everybody as individuals. And I think it's an idea which will not easily go away from the mind and accommodate any other idea. Right? Because this is like a very, very strong aspect of life. And in my opinion, that is what leads to the conflict in not being able to understand the Advaitic concepts clearly. So in my opinion, any differentiation, any individuality can only exist in body and mind, basically in the knowledge that is held. Whether there is anything other than mind, I may not know, because anything could be there. But fundamentally, it is outside the awareness. And it is held temporarily. As that knowledge belonging to the awareness is what is causing this ego, purely a temporary phenomena, only for experiencing things in a certain way. Can it be seen that way?
Okay, this is exactly what the discussion between Maitreyi and Yajnavalkya takes place in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, where he says to his wife that Atmanastu Kamaya Sarvam Priyam Bhavati. We all love things because we love our Atma. That when we love our Atma, we think that individuality which is being now, that Atma becomes the individuality. And because of that individuality, the relationship with the individuality, the son becomes dear to me, my wife becomes dear to me, my object becomes dear to me, my wealth becomes near to me, everything becomes dear to me because I love myself. And that loving myself, I do not understand that I am loving my pure self. But that pure self is now taken the root or taken the reflected image as a ego individuality. But as long as I limit it through my mind and expressions and experiences, the limitation of the body, mind, intellect plays into, and the relationship with that becomes the, what you call the ego. And that ego is due to the same problem of not knowing what is the basis or what is the substratum on which the ego is standing on. The ego has no independent existence other than your own self. So that is what Yajnavalkya tells his wife. You are loving your husband because you love yourself. You love your son because you love yourself. You love your wealth because you love yourself. But we don't realize that. We think that those things are giving us happiness and therefore we are loving it. This is exactly where the problem lies. It is our own reflected image which is become the ego, the individuality now. That when it is removed of the misunderstanding, it is me, myself, which is being reflected on and being seen. That some other Shuttam, what we are talking about, the equanimity with which we see everything. Then there is no separatedness as we call it as separate.
Thanks, Vintage.
Thank you.
So, Bindu, with the concepts of Chittabhasa and Pratibimba, these came later after Shankara, correct?
So,
Ramakrishna.
But Pratibimba was there, even Shankara's way, even the Upanishad is talking about Pratibimba.
Okay. But it was one of his disciples that expounded the
Chidabhasa.
Yeah. So Vivekananda, Ramakrishna, which are really just later versions of the teachings, part of that lineage, they accept that the reflection and the original are one and the same, because they're not there. This is the concept of vijnana, so that there's no separatedness. There's no division in that sense, that the reflection and the original are one and the same. But you reject that.
No, when you say reflection, cannot be the same. But when you say the reflection, a misunderstood reflection, that it's one and the same.
Sure, but effectively, if we get down to experience, when you are brushing your teeth and shaving, and putting your makeup on, you're looking in the mirror, and you don't mistake the original for the reflection, do you?
No.
But
you don't mistake. You know that it is a reflection.
Right. You know that there's a reflection, but you understand that the reflection really effectively is the same. So for all intents and purposes, it's one and the same, right?
That is exactly what is the. That is exactly, if you know that reflection is the same as yourself, then you have no delusion or you have no ignorance. But if you think it is separate, then what happens? The limitation of the separatedness will control you. Then what happens? If the mirror is concave or convex, you will see that there is a difference in you. You become fat or you become thin. You say this mirror is not good because it is showing me fat, or this mirror is not good, it's showing me crooked. Why? Because you think the reflection is separate from you. But when you say that reflection is mine only, but it is the fault is on the surface of the mirror. When you understand that, then that you will be able to manage with that defect in the mirror. But if you don't accept it, but you want to say the same reflection, then what you say? You try to change the reflecting media. That is not possible, because if you are looking at the reflection, it will show the reflection with the defect what it has got. It will have a lateral inversion. Your left will become right, right will become left. That is bound to happen. That is the nature of reflection. But when we talk about the Brahman or Atman reflecting itself and seeing the otherness, when you do not know that there is no real reflection which is taking place, it is the nature of the self knowing itself is what is now the reality, then the otherness is removed. But if you see the otherness, you become the individual. Prakash, anything to contribute from your side?
Very profound, in-depth discussion, Binduji. But so, is there a double adhyasa in this state of one is the adhyasa of?
How can there be double adhyasa? Adhyasa is only once, no?
I'm just
Where
wondering.
did you get the idea of double adhyasa?
See, the one is when one recognizes that the non-self, the body, mind, intellect is superimposed on consciousness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then,
go ahead.
in that state, there is still a trace of anubhava of that. So the anubhava is not fully resolved. And so the anubhava now does the superimposition through language of the self onto the reflected state, creating the mind, right?
The body, mind, intellect is not separate from the awareness. If it is separate from awareness, without awareness, the body, mind, intellect should be able to independently exist. That can never happen, because no object is outside awareness.
Yes, that is clear. That is clear.
Yes.
I'm talking about when you're in the Sravana Manana, in the Nididhyasana can be another. That's where I call it double adhyasa. Just to clarify, from the practitioner's viewpoint, that once when there is a deep recognition that the non-self is superimposed on the self, right?
It is, that is where you have to understand that the non-self is not superimposed onto the self.
Okay.
First, what happens is that the self, when it is knowing itself, there is called the self-awareness. We all have the self-awareness. I am is a self-awareness which we have. But the I, which is now I am saying that I am aware of myself, I am making an otherness. That is, my body, mind, intellect as a complex, it becomes the I. And knowing myself is the existence of this body, mind, complex existence. But that is not the reality. The reality is that self is aware of itself. And when it is non-apprehending itself is being aware of itself. It projects itself as otherness. Now that otherness has to have a location. That location is now becoming the mind or intellect, which apprehends the physical body, the world, the location, etc. So all those things are now becoming the adhyasa. On what? The mind, which is nothing but the otherness created by the self-awareness. I don't know whether you are able to follow me.
Yes, certainly. Yes, I'm going to do the Sravana Manana on this because this discussion took us deep into that where the adhyasa is unfolding, right? Would you agree, Binduji?
Yeah.
This is the space where the adhyasa is unfolding, right? And it
Right.
unfolds in different templates because of the vritti and vasana of one's own personal experience, right?
Yes, agreed.
Yeah. So
But you
then
should understand the adhyasa is not taking place of something existing onto the Atma. No.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Now that's
It
clear.
is the Atma itself creating the otherness, then assuming that I am that.
Yes.
But you know what's fun about it is that when you say that it's, sorry, I'm paraphrasing it, the awareness creating the otherness. You recognize how awkward that is.
Yes, it is awkward, but it's happening. That is why that is what we landed up, all of us here, in this separated, independent, empirical world, which is nothing but one mass of awareness. But we divide ourselves as people, objects, ideas, feelings, thoughts, etc., etc.
See, just to add.
Sorry, let me continue this with the original discussion with Srini. That we introduced the concept of vritti, but we didn't tie it to spandana, and so Bindu, you reject that Brahman is the origin of spandana or the cause of spandana.
The origin, the being, the be all and end all. Spandana is not different from our Brahman.
But vritti is then.
Vritti is, I told you, what is a vritti? The non-apprehension of one's own self creates this otherness, and that is a vritti.
So, but you're accepting that spandana, the origin or the cause of spandana, is Brahman.
Yes.
But there's no doing
it. That is the nature of Brahman. No doing it. There is no activity in it.
And you're saying that spandana, there's no action in spandana.
Mm-hmm. the act of knowing, if you want to call it as spandana.
Well, no, but that's not. You could say that is spandana, but that's not the only understanding of spandana.
No, that spandana of Kashmiri Shaivism is different from.
Yeah, but it's pretty close. It's pretty acceptable way to understand it.
Yeah, see,
it's an
that is why different methodologies are used by different explanations or philosophies, bringing different aspects. Whichever suits you will help you to remove that non-apprehension is what is all interested in, whether you call it as Kashmiri Saivism, Vedanta, Advaita, Vishishtadvaita, Dvaita, Yoga, whatever it is. The idea behind all of them is to get rid of the non-apprehension of you knowing yourself.
Yeah, so it's probably time for your beauty sleep. It's how you've maintained your beauty for all of these years. Such a beautiful man. And thank you for bringing us together to have the conversation. Srini and I love these, the combos that we've had on our own. And so the fact that you've brought it in, to your forum is wonderful. So we'll do it again. Srini's great to have this conversation with. And thank you so much for the forum, and Prakash.
Thank you, Patrick. Prakash?
This is another concept, but just to clarify. So the Anubhava, Anubhuti differentiation is something of importance for this practitioner, the student.
See, the difference between Anubhava and Anubhuti, even though people may differ in that, my take on that is that Anubhava is an active and variations of awareness, whereas Anubhuti is when you are settled in all those multiplicities into a unity, a unison of all Anubhava, knowing that multiple Anubhavas are not multiple in real nature, but they are all the same one and only one Anubhuti. Then it's called the Aparoksha Anubhuti.
Yes, thank you, Binduji. So there's another term that in the yoga path they use, which is the Nirvikalpa Samadhi. So is Nirvikalpa Samadhi an Anubhava?
Nirvikalpa Samadhi is an Anubhava, yes.
Okay.
Where the Vikalpas are not there, it is called Nirvikalpa. Vikalpa means multifarious thoughts in the Chitta Vritti.
Yes.
When that is not there, it is an experience, but that doesn't necessarily give you the self-awareness or Atmajnana. It is an absence of multitude, but at the same time, I am experiencing that, the quietitudeness or the silence or the absence of multiple thoughts. That the experiencer and the experiencing remains. The objects won't be there, but the experiencer and the experiencing will be, as a dichotomy will be there. That is why it is called an Anubhava.
So how about deep sleep? How about deep sleep?
Deep sleep is a state where there is no knower, knowing. Even knowing cannot be said that I am knowing that I am knowing deep sleep. I am in deep sleep. Nobody can say that. It is a state which is similar to what we call it as self-awareness. But only thing is that doesn't happen in the mind, where the dependency on the word and the dependency on the mind is not happening. Therefore, we never know when it is happening. We can only recollect it after we wake up that I knew nothing. But the I was knowing myself alone. I was there alone, all by myself. That knowledge doesn't happen in the deep sleep. So some call it as avidya existing, or the non-apprehension existing in the deep sleep. But Chandogya Upanishad says that having become one with the existence, there is no awareness. It's in the state of pure existence. That state is Sati Sambadhya na viduhu sati sambadhyamahe. That is the mantra in the Chandogya Upanishad. We all become existence. But we do not know we have become existence. So there, the Sat aspect is there. The Chit aspect is not known. But the Sat and Chit aspect can be known only in waking, to know that Atman Aham Brahmasmi, that Tattvamasi, Pratnyanam Brahma, I am Atma Brahma, all these Upanishadic words becomes a reality to us only in the waking. Otherwise, that it is not that only when we know that we are becoming the Atma or Brahman. We are Atma or Brahman, Nitya Shuddha Buddha Mukta Swabhava. That is our, with this very moment we are all that. But we do not know it. When we know it, we can know it only in the waking, as that is what we are. When we know this with the knowledge that the content of the knowing is depending upon me as the awareness. And when we can concentrate on to the me in that awareness, not giving importance to the name and the form of the content, then we become what we call it as self-aware. That is what is called the Jivan Mukta Avastha, or the knowledge. He becomes a jnani. But he is freedom. That is what called the Swatantrata, or the freedom for him to be engaged, to be remaining in that knowledge. That freedom is with him, which the Ajnani won't be having. Ajnani will be always in the content of the knowledge, but not in the knowledge or the awareness aspect of it. That is the difference between a Jnani and a Ajnani.
Yes, thank you very much, Bindoji. I think we have arrived at 10:30, or 10 o'clock IST. So we will call it end of the discussion. So thank you very much for everyone, for especially the ones who came up, everyone who attended the session. This is a deep manana which can be repeatedly listened to, because it gets to the crux of a lot of the questions that was brought forth beautifully by Srini and Patrick. So a special thank you to them for participating in this deep dive with Bindoji. And as always, Vinodji's perspective is very much appreciated, and so is Karen's. And special thanks to everyone who attended. And we see Artemisia in the audience, so we have to recognize Artemisia as one of the founders of this house, and for having consistently provided guidance on and off, because right now she's busy with other things. But if you go to the chat, you can find a link to one of the books Artemisia has penned, called The Imaginary Door, which is based on the insights, discussions with Bindoji on Advaita. And I think this room is a book by itself, actually. This room that we have gone into the depth of it is a book by itself, as maybe a practical guide to the practitioner. So thank you very much, Bindoji. So tomorrow we'll meet at 8:30 p.m. IST, and we will be continuing on the Bhagavad Gita chapter 4. Always thank you, Bindoji. Over to you to close the room.
Thank you, Prakash. Thank you, Srini and Patrick, Vinod and Karin, and Artemisia for holding this place. And see you all on Monday, that is tomorrow at 8:30, to continue our Gita classes. Hari Om. Good night.
Good night. Hari Om.